In the spring of 2011, a graduate student named Marcus Webb rented the upper floor of a subdivided Victorian house in Providence, Rhode Island. He was 26, studying architectural history at Brown, and he chose the apartment for its high ceilings, its tall windows, and the relative quiet of the east side street it sat on. The lower unit was occupied by an elderly man named Paul Heitman, who had lived there for over a decade, according to the landlord. "Quiet," the landlord said. "Keeps to himself. You'll barely know he's there." This turned out to be precisely and disturbingly true, but not in the way the landlord meant. For the first month, Marcus barely registered his downstairs neighbor at all. He heard the occasional footstep below, the muffled sound of a television late at night, the creak of the old house settling in the April wind. Standard sounds, apartment sounds. He was busy with coursework and paid little attention. Then, one evening in May, he passed Heitman on the front steps and introduced himself. The old man was perhaps 75, slight, with very pale eyes and a careful, deliberate manner of speaking. They talked for less than 5 minutes. Marcus came away from the exchange with an odd, unplaceable unease he attributed to the man's unusual stillness. He barely moved when he spoke, didn't gesture, kept his eyes fixed on Marcus with an attention that felt slightly too concentrated. He mentioned it to a friend, laughed it off, and forgot about it. In June, Marcus began to notice a smell. It came and went at first, a faint, organic sweetness in the hallway, sometimes on the stairs, occasionally seeping faintly through the floorboards in the back bedroom. He assumed something had died in the walls, a mouse, maybe a squirrel, and put a note under Heitman's door letting him know. There was no response. The smell faded for a week, then returned stronger. He mentioned it to his landlord, who said he would look into it. He didn't, or at least nothing changed. Marcus bought candles and an air purifier and learned to breathe through his mouth in the hallway. What happened next began so gradually that he struggled, afterward, to identify the exact moment the situation became something other than ordinary nuisance. He began noticing that things in his apartment were slightly, almost imperceptibly out of place. A coffee mug moved from the right side of the dish rack to the left. A book he was certain he'd left face down on his desk, face up when he returned from campus. A kitchen chair not quite pushed in the way he always pushed it in. Small things. The kind of things you dismiss because the alternative explanation is too unsettling to hold in your mind for very long. He started taking photographs of his apartment before he left in the mornings. He told himself it was just to set his mind at ease, to prove to himself that nothing was happening. The photographs did not set his mind at ease. Over the course of 3 weeks, he documented 11 instances of objects being moved in his absence. Always small things, always subtle enough that without the photographs he might have dismissed it. Whoever was doing it was being careful, was paying attention to how careful they needed to be. He changed his locks. It didn't stop. He stared at the new keys in his hand and understood that whoever was entering his apartment had been inside long enough and had been careful enough to copy his key before he changed it. That meant they had been doing it for some time before he noticed. That meant they had been watching him closely enough to know what subtle meant. Marcus went to the police. They took a report. They could not act on photographs of slightly misplaced objects. They suggested he install cameras, which he did immediately, covering the front door and the main living area. For 9 days, nothing happened. On the 10th day, while he was at the university, the camera above the front door recorded its own lens being covered with a piece of dark tape from the inside. From the inside. Someone had come in through another entrance, covered the camera, and left, all with Marcus having any idea how they had accessed the apartment. He sat in the police station with this footage for an hour while officers tried to identify the hand that reached up to cover the lens. They could not. They could not determine how entry had been made. That night, Marcus stayed with a friend and called his landlord, demanding answers. The landlord, clearly shaken, told him something he had neglected to mention at the lease signing. There was a shared utility access panel in the back of each unit's bedroom closet, designed for plumbing access, connecting both floors of the house. He had assumed both tenants knew about it. He had assumed both tenants kept it latched. Marcus had not known about it. He had never looked in the back of the utility closet in the bedroom. Neither apparently had his landlord in some time. The police accompanied Marcus to the apartment the following afternoon. The access panel in his closet was unlatched. When they opened Heitman's door on the lower floor with the landlord's master key, Heitman was not there. He had, they would determine, not been there for some time. What was there, in the back of his bedroom closet on the lower floor, was evidence of a different kind of occupation. A narrow space had been cleared against the shared wall, the wall that backed against Marcus's bedroom. In this space there was a folding chair, a small battery-powered lamp, and a collection of personal items. A coffee mug Marcus recognized as one he'd believed he'd broken and thrown away, a pen he had been looking for,
and several pages torn from a notebook he had never seen before, covered in close, dense handwriting. The writing was about Marcus, his schedule, his habits, the times he showered, the times he went to bed, what he ate, what he read. Pages and pages of it, meticulous and calm, written in the practiced hand of someone who had been watching for a very long time and was not done yet. Paul Heitman was never found. His record, once the police finally ran it, was not clean. He had been evicted from 2 prior residences, both under circumstances that were never fully disclosed to Marcus. The smell in the hallway had been coming from his unit. Its source was identified as organic material in a storage container under his kitchen sink. The police did not tell Marcus exactly what the material was, and Marcus decided he did not want to know. He broke his lease that week. He moved back to his home state and took a leave of absence from his program. He came back to Brown the following year, found a different apartment with a doorman in a modern building, and finished his degree. He does not live alone. He checks his closets when he comes home. He has never fully explained why to the people he lives with, because he has found that the full explanation tends to end conversations. What he told one close friend once, in the specific way you tell certain things only once and then bury them, was this: the thing that stays with him, the thing that still wakes him up sometimes in the thin gray hours before dawn, is not the panel, not the recordings, not the writing. It is the chair. The small folding chair positioned in the dark against the shared wall, on the other side of which his bed sat 6 inches away. The chair, which had clearly been sat in many, many times, the seat worn, the floor beneath and scuffed in the way a floor gets scuffed only by long, repeated, patient use. He had slept 6 inches from Paul Heitman's watch post for 3 months without knowing. Paul Heitman had been in that chair, in the dark, listening to him breathe.